Hello, everybody, and welcome to Montgomery County Community College. And today, I'm David Ivory, and today we're going to have a master percussion class. This is one of the first in the series we're going to do for Monco, and today we have master percussionist Pablo Batista. Pablo and I have been working together for the past 20 years. Pablo has an amazing track record, and we're going to get to it right now. Pablo, welcome. How are you?
Good. Good
to see you, brother.
Thanks.
It's really good to see you.
Good to be here, too.
Today we're going to also, besides featuring your talents, we're going to be talking about AKG microphones, because basically that's what we've been using since the beginning that we started working together back at Sigma Sound in the early 90s. So why don't you, first off, just, I want to say hi, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and some of your parts of your career.
Okay. Well, my name is Pablo Batista, and I've been studying percussion since I'm 9 years old. I've had the great opportunity of working with a lot of major artists in the industry, and but one of my favorite relationships is with producer and Grammy-nominated engineer David Ivory. We've done all kind of sessions from pop recordings to R&B to neo soul to punk rock to we've done a whole vast range of sessions together. So I came up studying percussion, folkloric stuff, and salsa, Latin percussion. Came to Philadelphia in 1981, graduated from Temple in '85, and immediately began working with the late Grover Washington Jr., both recording and touring until his passing in, I think, 1999.
Tell us a little bit about Grover. I mean, that's when I met you, because you were doing a lot of sessions up at Sigma, and that's when I first started going down there. And if anyone doesn't know Sigma Sound, it was basically one of the premier studios in the country, and the sound of Philadelphia, Gamble and Huff, OJ's, Spinners, all came out of that studio.
Absolutely.
Todd Rundgren, David Bowie, a whole bunch of people. So it was an amazing place to work at and to be at. And that's where we met Pablo. Pablo was working with Grover Washington, who was a Philly born and raised saxophone player who...
Born in Buffalo. Born in Buffalo. But lived in Philadelphia.
Well, yeah, that's right. You're right. That's right. He was born in Buffalo. And so he, Grover was an amazing jazz saxophonist, and Pablo was his percussionist. I know you toured with him to Japan and all over the place, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Once I joined the band full-time. I started working with him in '85, and from '85 to '90, I was in and out of the band as a sub. But that also gave me the opportunity to work with other people, like at that time producer Nick Martinelli, and so we
did Diana Ross and all those.
Gladys Knight, I did with Regina Bell,
right.
And so I was able to continue working. Phyllis Hyman, so I was able to continue working once I in between that session. About 90 or so, Grover called me from Japan and asked me to join the band full time. So since '85 to 99 till he passed, I was with him minutes before he passed away, by the way. But yeah, and a lot of artists in between. We gave us there was a lot of live sessions going on, people doing live recordings. So it gave us an opportunity not only to tour, but it gave us an opportunity to home in on the actual science of overdubbing and recording percussion, and and I was always teaching, so it gave me that forum to continue studying all the different styles or genres, like Afro-Cuban music, Brazilian music, or R&B or funk, or I grew up with everything, Latin rock. So my musical palette was pretty much across the board, from jazz all the way to everything.
My favorite joke is Pablo Rocktista.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A couple other things I wanted to kind of touch base on. I know you played with Patti LaBelle a lot, and coming up, you started doing some other sessions. Why don't you tell us what it was like? I know you played for a couple years with Alicia Keys. Fast forward up to that point, from like the Grover and the Patti and the Gerald Leverts and all that, coming up to Alicia. So give us a little bit of snippet of that.
Well, once Grover passed in '99, I took off a year, just to regroup, and then I started working with. I came out of the shed, so to speak, and I started working with Teddy Pendergrass, and then that's when I got the call when I was working with Teddy. I started working with Gerald Levert as well, and then I got the call to come in and audition for Alicia, and that was 13 years ago, and I'm still working with her on and off. touring and recording. So one of the things that brings me to this is that, you know, all during those periods of recording in the studio and as well as touring live, you know, AKG has always been there, along with Latin Percussion as another company that I endorse, and you know, they've been, you know, very supportive. And it just dawned on me as time went on that, you know, every studio session I went to or every major, you know, tour that I did, I was always surrounded by, you know, 414s and all kind of AKG 451s, and so, you know, for me, I feel really privileged to say that I'm working with them, and they're supplying me, and those are the weapons that I'm using now.
Weapons of choice. Why don't you, before we get into the music, which of course we're definitely going to today, and we're actually going to do actually some overdubs here at the film studio here that we've put together.
Cool.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit then from your experiences playing, and the difference between the road schedule, how you play live, how you play in a studio, what's the differences? Right. Are there any differences?
Yes.
Like, how does that work?
Well, there's definitely differences, because if you see me live, say on tour with Alicia or something, I have a huge rig and I play standing up. So, and the reason being is that you have to play in a way where it's seamless. Everything from the top of the show to the end of the show, the last note. For me, I've always tried to make it one huge statement from one song to another. Each song has its own characteristics, but it has to flow seamlessly. So, you know, the rig that I created playing live is totally different from the rig as you see, you know, in the studio, because I can lay down a track in the studio. That track is done. I can layer overdub, which is called overdubbing, and we can create a whole rhythm section ensemble based on one track at a time. Where in a live setting, I've had to develop my independence so that I can do one thing with my foot, another thing with my right hand, another thing with my left hand, play colors, hit accents, play groove, and play multiple instruments at one time. So, and I do that with the help of electronics along with acoustic percussion, and you know, it enables me to do 4 or 5 things at one time and create this whole vibe of, you know, an ensemble.
I believe it was last year you were in Modern Drummer, was it?
Drum Magazine.
Drum Magazine.
Drum Magazine
and
did a couple.
That's where they showed your all your
rig,
right?
Yeah.
So Drum Magazine has a picture of all
Cool.
that. Just real quickly, can you just kind of go over some of your toys here that you have?
Yeah, well, you know, I basically have a standard, you know, rig that I always have with you when we do sessions. And, you know, I basically carry my 2 congas, sometimes 3, depending on the session and the type of style of music, stylistically. A low drum and a higher drum to give me that range. And then I usually bring as well, you know, bongos that have also have high pitch and lower. And then I bring an array of instruments from, you know, from colors and effects and chimes and triangles and shakers and cabasas and African bells and, you know, an array of instruments that will enable me to create an ensemble from a rhythmic standpoint all the way to a textured standpoint or a color, atmospheric, ambiance type of thing. Some tracks I do are very simple. Some things are more complicated. It depends on the track, the style of music. That's one of the things that I think separates me from many other percussionists, is that I've taken the time to really study different genres and different styles of music. You know, because every country has its own style of music. You know, Brazilian percussion is different from Afro-Cuban percussion, which is different from Indian percussion, which is different from, you know, even African percussion. So these are all genres that all have their own instruments and their own language and their own style. So as a percussionist, it's kind of like our responsibility to be able to at least come as close as you can to embody every style, as many styles as you can, you know, and be able to deliver or play these styles in the different styles of music without taking away from that genre of music. In other words, you know, you should be able to play Latin percussion or Brazilian instruments in a pop recording session without sometimes even getting ethnic or folkloric. In other words, the texture of the instrument itself can play a role both on the folkloric level as well as a popular level. So but it's really important for musicians and drummers and percussionists to study the genres so that we can know, okay, well, this is this is a samba, this is a batucada, this is a partido alto, this is rumba, this is guarapachangueo, this is cha 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 son, or guaguancó, or Mozambique or songo, whatever the abacua, whatever all these different rhythms are. We need to know that so that when we come in, most of the time, I'll play a groove and you're like, yeah, that's cool, or that's too busy, or that's too folkloric. Oh, okay, well, let me simplify it. For instance, we're doing a session today, and we're one of the feels that I heard for the piece, one of the pieces, it has like a reggaeton feel. And reggaeton, as you know, is well, one of the rhythms that really locks in with reggaeton is a rhythm from Trinidad, which is calypso, which can be played like. Okay, but if you dig deeper, that rhythm comes from if you do your research, that rhythm comes from another rhythm called makuta, which has the same feel, but it's in a folkloric setting. One person plays one part, another person plays another part. So if you combine the two parts,
and that's African.
This is African. So if you play the makuta, it would sound like. Which is very similar to
right.
So depending on the track, I can either go, more folkloric or a little more.
What always astounded me of your knowledge of rhythms is like I could say a country and you could play me their rhythm. So why don't we go to, like you mentioned, Brazil? What's a Brazilian rhythm that's found indigenous in that region?
Wow, there's so many.
Right.
Oh my God, it's a whole like.
Well, give us a couple that you.
Oh, I'll give you one and then we'll move on.
Okay.
There's so many,
Right.
But first of all, the instruments are different.
Right.
They don't play congas; they play octabac drums, which are very similar, but they're straight cylinder, and they're usually the heads are different, calfskin. But one of the rhythms that I play is it's a samba, and you can play this rhythm that will lock in with the other drums because as when you play Brazilian music, it's all folkloric. So there's one person playing the surdo drum, or there's two people playing surdo, and then these are these big drums with the and they play with a mallet, and and the beats on the 1 and 3. So beat boom beat boom boom beat get boom boom beat boom boom. So the whole the way I teach is that Brazilian music has this one feel that. So one rhythm that I kind of do, it's kind of safe. It's a rhythm that I play during a samba. If I'm creating a little samba, it just sounds like. And then when you put things together, so you say, okay, that sounds cool, but it's by itself. If you put a surdo, and then if you continue layering and adding instruments, they'll play a ganza, which is a shaker, but they won't play it on the downbeat. They'll play it on the up. And it's got that feel. And then if you layer that down and you add another upbeat on the track.
Okay, so now that you got us all going on this, why don't we try real quick to lay down those 3-4 different parts that we wanted to do. You want to try that?
We can.
Okay, let's do that.
We can lock it down real quick.
All right, let's just do that real quick. We'll try to build
why don't
the
we
track.
do this? Why don't we do this? Let's talk about what we got around us, though. where I'm surrounded by a.
Well, first, before we get to that,
okay.
What are these drums made of? Fiberglass or wood?
Oh, okay. Good question.
Your Latin percussion.
Yes. These are my babies. I've been using Latin LP in Dorsey since 1985, and I choose the fiberglass drums because of the durability on the road and the versatility in the studio. They usually sound great in the studio, and they're very durable drums. And I recommend anybody studying percussion to look into Latin percussion instruments because it's just they're just amazing instruments. So I'm real proud to say that I'm an LP artist. Today we're recording on carpet, which is typically not what I would do in a studio, but this is for demonstrations.
Right. We would always be on a wood floor. We
would always bring a piece of plywood.
We would always be on a wood floor.
And,
but for today, we had to do it on
So these
carpet.
are the fiberglass drums. They make wooden drums as well, which are a little warmer, a little more fragile on the road. I'm pretty brutal with my stuff, so I need to keep things that are going to last. And
all right, and now we'll talk about the microphones.
Okay.
So since I use them all the time with you, and I too am an AKG fan. Most of my mic closet is AKG filled.
Right.
So I'll go over some of these microphones right now. First, as the overheads, what I like using for the colors and for all the ambient instruments are the 414 Gold. They're like one of the newer lines of the 414 line. They're have a much brighter and bigger response. In other words, they have a much higher and lower frequency range, very uncolored. Very nice, great microphones for clarity, for presence, for all that, and I'm a big fan of those. Now for the Kunga, because of the sound and because of the pressure that comes off of the drum itself, I try to use the AKG 451s because to me they can really handle the percussiveness and yet still provide a really nice, clean sound. Now. Typically, I use a Trident console or I use Neve 1073s. So that's where they run into before they go into wherever we're recording. Here we're talking with this is a C1000 here, which is a great all-around microphone that AKG uses, and it's really good for a lot of different things. Sometimes I use it for a hi-hat, sometimes I use it for acoustic guitars in the front. And then over here, for the overall microphone for like the room, I use a C12, which is pretty much the flagship of AKG mics. This is the VR, so this is not the original C12 that was made back in the day, but this is the newer version of them. And that's an excellent mic. I use it for room, I use it for voice, acoustic guitar, a whole lot of things. Nice. And it's a great mic to pick up the whole room. So you're very familiar with those as well.
Well, the thing that I wanted to mention too, one of the things that I really also I talked to AKG about is that I'm real physical when I play live because I'm standing and I'm grabbing things and I'm dropping things and throwing things and jamming and dancing, and oftentimes I've kicked the mics or thrown something and it's hit and the mic's fallen, and these mics are workhorses. Yeah. I've never damaged one, thank God, but they're really, I remember from, at least from the 80s, mid-80s on down, always using AKG and the engineers, these huge engineers that have worked with, have a dear friend of mine who works with Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks and has done everybody from Madonna, a good dear friend named Dave Cobb, and he swears by AKG, and he's the one that actually said, I inquired about, hey man, these mics, I see them in the studio all the time. I said, yeah, these are the, and so he started educating me little by little on the microphone. So like not only in the studio but live, you just can't beat them. It's an amazing company.
Yep, I agree. This is called Because of You. It's a R&B type reggae kind of sound. I'll let you, you'll check it out, and I thought we'd start with Kunga. Okay? Okay. And you take a listen to it, and then we'll just start from there. I wanted to talk to real quick before we get started. This song has that rub thing you do with your finger on the Kunga. Could you show us how that technique works? Right.
I call it a weep. If you buy electronic percussion, it's usually you can find it. They call it the weep. actually a rhythm in Haiti that they play like that. But we don't do that. We just go, you know, use it as an effect.
Right. Okay, so we're going to start. Here we go.
Let's check it out.
I never thought that love was ever mine. I felt like I was wasting time. But then, girl, you came into my life and you opened up my eyes. That's when I saw that love was blind. I never thought you would be mine. But then you brought me so much joy. I felt like a little boy. That's when I knew that you were the one for me. I've got so much love because of you. I've got so much love for you. I got so much love because of you. I've got so much love for you. Then one day, out of the blue, my baby came to me and she gave me the greatest news. She said, baby, I'm pregnant with our child. It made me so happy. You couldn't take away my smile. Now I gotta give thanks to the Lord above for sending me this special lady, the one I truly love. I've got so much love, yeah. I've got so much love for you. I've
So what do you want to do next?
I'm really feeling a kielbasa track because, you know, it doesn't need that continuous kind of groove. It's got that. So I'm feeling a kielbasa track.
Okay.
And I happen to have one here.
Just so happens.
It just so happens that I.
It's amazing that you actually have all that stuff.
You know what?
All right. So with the kielbasa, we're going to use 451. We're going to incorporate this into that mix.
By the grace of God. Let me see. Where's it? All right. Here we go.
All right. So first, we're going to just kind of get a.
There we go.
And again, we're going to be a little closer on this, just not. There we go. Take the rust off. All right. All right, we're going to take a sound check and we're going to start, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go.
And we want to mix this a little bit, D.
Yep. There you go. So I'm going to go back to the two mics because I want to try to get some nice stereo separation from this. And we're going to do your classic XY type pattern. And then that way we can get some stereo out of it and still be a little far away, but kind of capture the essence of those sounds. All right, you ready?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I never thought that love was ever mine. I felt like I was wasting time. But then, girl, you came into my life and you opened up my eyes. That's when I saw that love was blind. I never thought you would be mine. Special lady, the one I truly love.
We're at Montgomery County Community College. We're doing a master percussion class with my good friend Pablo Batista. And we're cutting some tracks. In a moment, we're going to bring the students in and we're going to do a little Q&A with them because there's some questions all back there with the people listening to everything. So I thought that would be a great idea. Absolutely. You want to do one more color track of this?
I want to do a little clave track and then we'll end it with a color track. So we'll do two more little quick tracks.
Awesome. Where's the clave? What are you going to use?
All right, I have it right here.
And on this one, the clave track, since it has a little brightness to it and a little edge.
Well, particularly these are African and they're made out of metal, so they'll have a little different texture than the actual king claves, the LP ones. Okay.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're not going to use the 451s. I'm going to go back to the C12, further away, softer mic, and try to counteract some of the edge of that. But I will bring it up a little closer than I did for the cowbell.
Yeah, this is not as loud.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. Next clave track.
I never thought that love was ever mine. I felt like I was wasting time. But then, girl, you came into my life and you opened up my eyes. That's when I saw that love was blind. I never thought you would be mine.
And it's going to be a color track, so we're going to leave this same setup with the 414 golds, and we're going to take it from there. Okay, Bub?
Now, what I want to also note for those listening is that oftentimes when I cut with you, Dave, as you can tell, I do intentional things. I misplace the rhythm intentionally. Oftentimes people think, oh, well, you put the clave in a different place, this section, and the reason why I do that is I give, instead of playing everything exactly the same, I do that when I do record oftentimes, but sometimes I do intentional misplacements of things so that it gives the producer, like yourself, an option and in the actual mixing process. So in other words, the clave might be in one section on one, in one section in a different place than the other section. And I did that intentionally so that David can sit back and say, oh, wait, when he's mixing, wow, that clave is locking in better on this side of the rhythm. Let me take this section and maybe loop that a little bit. And
right.
So I give you the option of having different looks without.
And also, you knowing me, like a lot of times, like in Latin, the clave is always on.
Oh yeah, it's always just a specific place, and everything falls around.
Right, and a lot of times I don't really want that to happen.
No, on the contrary,
because right, I want it opposite. Because a lot of times it'll sound more Latin, and you might not want that just because of the way the placement is. The clave is placed on the groove.
Exactly. So I give you different options by misplacing it at different times, and then oftentimes you'll get back into the control room. You tell me like at night, he'll come in at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and start listening. Say, and then when I come back to listen to these tracks, they're different, but you chose a different section and put these things together, which makes it really magical at times.
Right. That's awesome, and it gives me a lot of options. A producer, it'll give a producer a lot more options, which is important. Okay, so we're going to do our last color track or stereo color track.
Yeah, I'm going to do. And like then it's going to be like a dual tambourine, kind of just 1-to-1, and then I'll color it up.
Right, and then we'll bring in the students for some Q&A.
Absolutely.
All right, brother, here we go.
I never thought that love was ever mine. I felt like I was wasting time. But then, girl, you came into my life and you opened up my eyes. That's when I saw that love was blind. I never thought you would be mine. Special lady, the one I truly love.
Thank you very much, Pablo. Awesome job, as always. It's a pleasure. You're the best.
The pleasure's
You
mine.
certainly are the best.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, we're going to bring the students in for some Q&A. Why don't you guys come on in around the horn, and if we have some questions, we're going to take them for Pablo while he's still here.
It's a good time for that.
Come on in. Why don't you, whoever has a question, do we have a microphone for everybody? Or a microphone we can pass around?
Yeah, they have, Sean has one in his hand right there.
A nice AKG handheld microphone. All right. Why don't you, whoever's got the first question, why don't you get the microphone, tell me who you are, and state your name, and then we'll ask Pablo a question. Who's first? All right, Carlos. That was the song we just did. Was your song, Carlos? Yes. So why don't you ask him a question? Go ahead.
Well, my name is Carlos Gordon. I first want to say thank you very much because that was an amazing treat. You know what I mean? It's nice to see you in action. You know what I mean? I read your bio and you've done amazing stuff, but to see you live and in action is even more amazing. So my question is, how do you concentrate to play so many different style and genres of music? You know, because to me, I'd get confused after a while.
Well, I mean, it's as a result of growing up here in the United States. You know, coming up, my parents are from Puerto Rico. My father passed, and so I always grew up listening to salsa music, but I also grew up here in the United States listening to AC/DC and the Jacksons and Santana and Earth, Wind and Fire and War. I was born in the '60s, so I grew up, during the Beatles era, and the whole genre, the whole music industry was just so rich and amazing that, like, I just loved everything I heard. So it was easy for me to just listen to music all day long, whether it's rock and roll, R&B, Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, whatever. I was always into all of it. I would listen to all the Motown, all the styles of Motown, all the way through the funks of, Rick James, and it's just, and then got into the heavy jazz thing and Latin. So, for me, it was just having more to listen to and more to study and more to love, so it's easy for me to listen to, study different elements of different musics, like reggae. Reggae has its own things, and just like samba, just like rumba, and all these other genres of music. So when you study them for a long time, you start realizing the connections and what things make that genre different and distinct. So I try to, be mindful of that and try to, give them my little flavor without going overboard with it.
Thanks.
Another question?
My name is Tyrone. I wanted to ask, when you were first coming up, how long for each day did you practice?
Wow. I was, I would run home after sports. I would come home, play sports, do my homework, and then I would usually be in the shed from like 6 on down to 10, 11 until they made me stop every day. So I was a kid that was bouncing off the walls. I'd go and play football and then come home and do my homework, eat something, and I would be right upstairs, listening to Moonflower, Santana's live recording, or, or Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, it was such a rich time in my life for music. So, I mean, I listened to everything from the OJs to Lou Rawls to, I can't even tell you all the Teddy Pendergrass, the OJs, all the rock and roll stuff, AC/DC. So it was easy for me to just put the radio on and just jam and the records and study for, 6-7 hours every day. And, that's what I usually did every day.
Gotcha. How do you have that internal metronome? Because when we were listening to you, you didn't have a click track in your ear or anything.
That's a good point, and it's dangerous because oftentimes, you really have to be sharp if you're not going to use a click track. You have to be, and the other thing is, oftentimes when you don't use a click track, you're subject to the music wavering a little bit. So oftentimes I'm called to do sessions because not David usually cuts with a click, but usually like there've been other instances where I've done sessions where there's no click, and they brought me in to cover up the differences in time or the fluctuations in time with colors and little sweeps, things that will and little breaks that might slow down or speed up. So with percussion, you can kind of like clean up things, create little subgrooves, and clean up a lot of tracks that are wavering if you don't use a click track. But my personal suggestion is always use a click track to keep you honest and make everything clean and tight.
Appreciate it.
Like they haven't heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Pablo.
Hi.
My name is Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, I know you work with Grover, which is one of my favorite artists, and I've been to see him many times when he was alive.
Yeah.
When you're getting ready to sit down with an artist, what do you actually do when you first meet them or you know their music? How do you know what you're going to, what kind of part of your instruments you're going to play or what you're going to do in
Instrument
terms of their
selection,
music, your selection?
Yeah, I base it off of their music, first of all. I study the music. I study all the sounds in the music, and I figure out where my role is in that music. If it's all drum related or there's no percussion, what I do, I have a technique that I use to stay out of the way of the drummer and just fortify what he does, or support what the drummer. I'm always supporting what the drummer does. Let's get that straight. But when there is percussion, I learn the exact parts, whether it's electronic percussion, whether it's acoustic percussion, or a combination of both. I learn my parts to see if there's anything there. If there isn't any percussion parts, I really work hard in staying out of the drummer's way, but also playing, creating parts that are going to support the drummer with whatever he's doing, whether that's rhythm or whether that's colors or whether that's just whatever's there, a finger snap or just a clave or a triangle part. As simple as it may be, it's a piece of a puzzle. So to answer your question is, I learn the music first, learn all the parts that I have to do, make sure that I can play all the parts simultaneously, whether it's 3 or 4 parts. I come as close as I can with that. And then from there, I add different layers of sounds to kind of finish the statement and create an ambiance. I like to do what I call multi-layering. I like to create a groove. I like to create an ensemble, which is another part of the groove. And then I like to also accent the accents and create ambiance at the same time. So it's actually like a 4 type of layer thing. And I can achieve that by playing a lot of independence. My foot will play one thing, my left hand will play another thing, my right hand will play another thing, and my right hand can hit the accents while playing colors and while creating a groove. So, and that's something that is not evident in this particular setting, because in a studio you can you have all these amazing microphones and you have the luxury of doing things piece by piece. So that's why I'm sitting down. That's why I'm taking my time. I do one track and then I'll layer, and that's called overdubbing.
Hey Pablo, my name is Steve Calmia.
Hey Steve.
I just want to say I really like how you very subtly build up to the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds really cool. I was wondering what brought you to percussion to choose as your as what you like to play.
Good question.
Do you play any other instruments?
Yeah, good question. What I did was I wanted to stick to being a percussionist and doing what I do. I didn't want to be a person that did multiple things but was really not that good at one thing. I figured I would be a lot more successful if I did one thing and be really, for lack of a better term, kick ass at it. And really focus in on, this is what I do. I'm a specialty type of person. And it was an important point what you made, because to record records and do a good job recording, you have to know how to build up a track. And a lot of times you can see a person's inexperience, you can hear a person's inexperience when you hear a percussionist recording and there's 50 million things going on right off the top of the, right in the intro. My technique, as David will tell you, is I like to build. I like to build things, and I like to start off a little subtle and create ambiance in the beginning, and then create a groove where it's layered and it builds as the song continues and the choruses come in. We usually build the choruses up, and the latter choruses or the later choruses that occur in the song are usually built up more, even stronger than the earlier choruses, so that you can see where the track is going, and you build and build, and it ends in this space where it's layered and it's it's easy for you to hear, and all of a sudden, because if you give the senses too much to listen to too much, it's simplicity is always, I always find to be really an important feature in music. So I try to, especially with opportunities of recording multiple tracks and doing overdubs, I try to build it real slow and you know, sneak in this and then sneak in that, and sometimes I'll give a whole lot of percussion so that the producer will have more to work with. So, you know, those are two different techniques. But I use both of them, but I usually build the track little by little.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Couple more.
Couple more questions? Cool.
Hi, Pablo. I'm Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Out of all the songs that you've done over your lifetime, what's your favorite song that you've done out of all of them?
Ooh. You know, I'm really proud of the song that you probably haven't heard and you probably won't hear. I don't know. You have to really do some research. It's a Peter Gabriel song I did, and I did it with for Alicia and Bono was on it. So it was a duet with Alicia Keys and Bono, and I did all the percussion. It was produced by Steve Lillywhite, who's, you know, a famous YouTube producer and a whole bunch of people. But what was really cool about that track, that it was in 3/4 feel. So it was the approach that I used was more Ghanaian, Senegalese, June sounding djembes, and we created this groove. And by the time they mixed it down, you could hear it, but it was mixed down. But it was still the way they used reverb and how we recorded it and the techniques that Steve used on the recordings. It was actually pretty amazing because we used a drum and we had towels on it and tape and all, and we created this really low sub sound that was just like, and you have all this African 3/4 stuff going, and it just created this really cool ambiance for this tune. It's a Peter Gabriel song, and it's a duet with Alicia Keys and Bono. So I was really proud of that because I got a chance to work with I didn't meet Bono, but I love his music. So, you know, to be on a track with him, and also to have done a track with another great producer, Steve Lillywhite, for me was just an amazing thing. And then having to do a duet it was a duet between Alicia and Bono. So it was a really amazing experience for me. So that one stands out, I think.
Nice. Anyone else? Vince? Wherever the mic is.
Hey.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Pablo. My name is Troy.
Hey, Troy.
I was just wondering why you chose to use AKG equipment as opposed to the other types of audio equipment out there.
Good question. Because, like, you know, I started really touring in 1985 after I graduated from college. And, you know, they were always there on deck. It was real simple. It was just like, you know, that I remember seeing 414s back, you know, in 1985. And then when you deal with amazing people like David and Dave Cobb, another amazing live engineer, I mean, and these guys use it. You know, I mean, it's when you see the big boys using them, and you're like coming up as a young man and seeing, wow, you know, AKGs in every legitimate studio that I've ever done sessions for, AKG is always there, and so it's like a no-brainer when you're doing live concerts with the microphone and then you go into a studio setting and they're there, and then you know doing live concerts and and as time goes on, you hit the mic and you knock it over, or you have all these different experiences, but you know, they never break, and they're always there, and it's just, my sound is never compromised. It's just an amazing, you know. So the proof is in the industry. I was just a person who, you know, realized it and said, wow, this is an amazing sound that I'm getting out of these mics, and you know, so I adapted them, and they've been able to support me, so I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Mike. You mentioned earlier that in the song that you did with Bono and Alicia Keys that you played in more of like a 3/4 rhythm, and outside of just 3/4, when it comes to playing in different time signatures or different fluctuating times, aside from the standard 4/4 here in the United States, like how do you go about learning how to play in that style?
Well, you know, the track tells you. The music is always my barometer. It's my compass. It tells, you know, if you're listening to a track that is 3/4, but it has an Afro-Cuban feel, you know, I would, you know, be more prone to play Afro-Cuban rhythms, you know, like Abacua or Colombia, which are in 3/4 feel. If I feel the track has, you know, more of an African influence, where, you know, we have the guitars, the structures of the patterns of the guitar players in Africa, you can hear them. If you listen to Paul Simon, or that's a bad example, but Paul has some African guitars in a lot of his music, but there's a lot of great African artists. If you listen to High Life or Angelique Koujo or Houssef N'Dour, I mean, those, when you start feeling, when you hear the music, and it's really, that really dictates my instrument choice, you know. So when I feel more of an African feel, I will pull out dun drums, talking drums, or djembes, or junjuns, or you know. So, you know, the feel of the song will dictate the instrumentation. If I'm playing something with a Brazilian feel, you know, I like to try to find out what the tracks are before I get into the studio, and I try to bring the appropriate instruments. So, you know, it all depends on the feel of the song and where that takes you, and the producer's vision and the writer's vision versus my vision, and we always come in the middle and just make it happen. You know, I'm flexible, because oftentimes there's no rules. You know, it's what your creativity. There are rules when you're playing different styles of music. If you're playing salsa, David will tell you, you know, everything's very clave oriented. You have to play your patterns within a certain structure, and everything revolves around that. But if you're playing things with more freedom, you have to be really careful as to what to play, to not make it too much of any one thing, but enhance that track. My goal is to enhance the track, not to play Latin in a track, or Afro-Cuban, or Afro-Puerto Rican, or Afro-Brazilian, or, you know, that's not my goal when I do sessions. My goal is to, you know, listen to the song and enhance it, whatever feel is in the song and whatever feel I come up with. It's not about me, it's about the song, and trying to fulfill the writer and producers and arrangers' dream, you know, and while also satisfying my musical capabilities, you know. So, you know, oftentimes they say, oh, well, that's enough, and then I'll say, well, Dave, I think it needs a little something here, and then all of a sudden I'll place it, and he'll say, yeah, perfect, cool. One little shake, or one little click, or one little thing will tie things together, because I like to record linear. I like everything to be, as I said earlier, one unison, one ensemble that locks all the rhythm section together. So.
And from a producer standpoint, you know, as a producer, you want to try to get your musicians that are in your wheelhouse that you can communicate with, and you know their sensibilities are like your sensibilities. So the good thing with Pablo, and the reason, you know, I know a lot of great percussionists, and there are several in the region, like from New York to DC, there's a couple of them, but Pablo and I have worked together so long that we have this understanding of each other, and his sensibility of music itself, not whether he can play Latin or whether it's just music. And I always call Pablo because of his sensibility of music, and not necessarily what beat or rhythm he can play, because that's, at the end of the day, the most important thing. You know, how you place a percussionist in your song. Because again, even Pablo will tell you the ultimate is the song. That's the bottom line of the bottom line of the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And then it's the singer who sings that song. And then after that, it's all these colors and all these things to help emphasize that. That's the whole mission. And Pablo has that sensibility, and that's why he's part of the production team that I work with.
Mm-hmm. However, you have to learn your rules before you break them.
Right.
In other words, you have to study, you have to do research, you have to learn all your folklore, you have to know all these different things. At least for me, I mean, I have to know what all these Afro-Cuban rhythms are, Afro-Puerto Rican rhythms are, Afro-Brazilian. I need to know all the differences, so that when I, cause Dave might not know what I'm doing, but I'll break it down. Yo, Dave, this was a makuta, like we did earlier. Makuta is from the Congo, you know, and which is the father of Calypso, which is the rhythm they play in Trinidad. So it's like, when you do it's almost like being a music ethnologist. You do your research, you learn the rules, so then you can break them. You shouldn't break a rule unless you know it.
Right.
You know,
it's like the DNA of percussion. Like, you have to go back in time to really kind of hear all that and understanding that. And mm-hmm. you know, that's what you do. It's pretty amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, second question. My name is Tyrone. As a player at your level, how do you still challenge yourself?
Well, you know what challenges me is youth. youth. There's a lot of young people that I've taught, and a lot of young guys coming up, and they call me the OG now, which has several things. I thought it was original gangster. They're telling me it's, I don't know what else. It has old in it. Whatever. That old part is, I looked at it as an old gangster. But the thing about it is, for me, what motivates me is number one, music is evolving all the time. So and musicians are evolving, and so it's up to you not only to get the folkloric stuff, but you have to keep up with the contemporary times, and the youth. Being youthful is really, really, being contemporary, learning to be able to adapt, and move forward, because this is all cool. But there's a whole movement with electronic percussion, and there's a whole several guys out there making a living playing, percussion, and they don't know any of the folklore stuff, but they play really well pop percussion or electronic. So the difference between them and me is, I do this, but I do that, and I can do, I combine them, and that's what kind of makes things crazy. I can combine the old folkloric things along with, with the real contemporary things, and create a different vibe. One example was, if you guys ever get on video, you can see Freedom Tour on Alicia Keys. It's called the Freedom Tour, and the opening of that Freedom Tour was her coming out in a cage, but in that walk of her bringing her out in a cage, I created this groove where there's a bata rhythm underneath, played on congas, along with electronics, along with an African march which goes sha sha sha, and so I'm playing this acoustically with the thing sha. So I'm creating this vibe, and meanwhile the cage is coming out, zoom, zoom, and they're bringing the cage out, and it's all coordinated, and the lights are all arranged, and it's like, and it's all of a sudden this whole movement is occurring as a result of a combination of folkloric sounds and electronic sounds, and the combination. And that's what having a really cool rig enables you to be able to do multiple things. So that's my thing. I really love to combine the old and the new and create something different.
And last thing, what was that sliding vibrato kind of thing you were doing on the drum head?
The weep.
I've never seen that before. It's where it's pretty cool.
This thing?
Yeah.
You hear it now that you'll hear it in a lot of songs. It's definitely around, especially jazz stuff. You'll hear it a lot in jazz.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Especially at the end of a song.
Yeah,
like at the end of a song when it's fade down and it's just getting really light. You'll hear that. You'll hear that.
That's cool.
Now that you hear it,
But it's a sound that's is also used in Haiti in one of the rhythms. So it's a folkloric, it's used in folkloric music, and here it is an adaptation in popular music. So that's a small example of old being brought into some really cool.
Appreciate it.
Stuff.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Pablo. Once again, we're coming from Montgomery County Community College here in Pennsylvania. Masterclass with my good friend and amazing musician, Pablo Batista. I'd like to thank all the people at Monco, the film department, the audio department, all the audio students, Alan, Sean, all the people at Morgan who kind of makes this all happen for us, and AKG mics and Pablo and everybody else. So thank you very much, and that's the end of our Masterclass.
Thanks, Dave. Peace and love, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Love you too, man.
All right, let's break it down.
Whoop, whoop. Time to go.
I never thought that love was ever mine. I felt like I was wasting time. But then, girl, you came into my life and you opened up my eyes. That's when I saw that love was blind. I never thought you would be mine, but then you brought me so much joy. I felt like a little boy. That's when I knew that you were the one for me. I've got so